Today, Channel 18 will take you on a tour of the dispatch at Barnstable Police Department. It has been combined with Hyannis Fire Department. And with me today, Lieutenant Mark Cabal. Mark, you're finally up and running, people are trained, and the new dispatch is working as expected.
As expected, and I'd say better than expected.
Great.
We're just hitting the 6-month anniversary from the hire date of our new civilian staff, and we're finally getting into a good, comfortable groove where things are going very, very well.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the new staff. So the last time we spoke during Dispatch 101, you were in the process of hiring. So yes. How did that training go?
The training went well. Out of the 12 that we hired, we ended up losing a few. So we're in the process of hiring and training some more. It's a very difficult job, and it's very tough to gauge who's going to be great at it just based on an interview or an application. So we put a lot of weight into our on-the-job training and our classroom training. And after that, when they finally get on their own, unfortunately, sometimes we have to make the tough decision to let someone go so that we retain the best quality dispatchers.
Right. So talk a little bit about their classroom training. So when we came in today, you had some additional training. So they're training all the time.
It really is never ending. Just a few minutes prior to you folks getting over here, we had 4 or 5 rescue calls at once. So it was very, very busy. Would involve mutual aid, calling in officers, calling in firefighters from home. After that settled down, the captain from the Hyannis Fire Department just popped in just to check in, following like a very busy time, make sure everything went okay, make sure no one had any questions. So really the training is like almost every day. It almost never ends. Right,
so the calls that come in are never the same.
No, I wish they were. That would be easy.
Right. So talk a little bit about the facility itself. You have screens everywhere, you have keyboards, there's a lot of equipment in there. Detail some of what that equipment does.
Sure. So when we get into the dispatch center, it's made up of 4 different main positions, and all 4 of those are staffed by dispatchers, or in some events we'll bring 1 police officer in there as well, depending on the staffing needs of that time of day or year. But at each of those seats, it's set up with a total of 7 monitors. There's a lot going on, and each of those monitors is a 24-inch monitor, so it can hold multiple windows. They could easily have 10 or 15 Microsoft-type windows open that they're working with at any given time. One of the monitors is strictly for the radio system, 2 are dedicated strictly to the state 911 system, and then the other 4 is where we pile in everything else that we have to do. And it's everything from dispatch software to plain old Google Maps that everyone uses at home, and the town website, property lookups. We utilize every single thing that we can get our hands on to grab information from when we're working these calls. Okay. All right, so this is one of our 4 positions. They're all basically set up exactly the same way like I was talking about. And if you just back up a little bit, Ross, here, I just want to show them all the different monitors that we have. So this one over here on the left strictly controls our radio systems. You see the blue boxes, those are our police channels, and all those red boxes are fire channels. The gray down the bottom, we actually now have all the local UHF. We have the stuff like at the high school, the community college, the hospital. We have a ton of different resources that we get in here now that we didn't before the merger. These 2 screens over here, this is our 911 mapping. So what you'll see on the bottom is basically the call control screen that's going to give us a layout of everything that's going on at any given time. And then on the top, if you can toggle, Ross, can you toggle through a couple of calls? That's what the mapping looks like when a call comes in. That particular call there is a landline call. I believe that was a transfer from, what do we got there? Oh, that was, okay, so that was a landline call from 89 Lewis Bay Road in Hyannis that we just had a little while ago for a medical issue. You can tell all the information comes up when these phones ring. We can tell right away that it's a landline, and when we know it's a landline, then we know it's completely accurate. If it was a cell phone, it would give us some of that accuracy data that I was telling you about. Moving over to these screens here, this one up in the top right, this is what we call our emergency medical dispatch cards. Okay, so when someone calls in, let's say it's a heart attack type situation with a lay person, there's no medical person on site, we are able to, by clicking through some of these boxes, you'll see here we can pick what's wrong, and then from there we can transition right to a CPR instruction or any other type of medical instruction that will help the patient prior to the ambulance getting there. So we have a lot of different ways with that, and it's set up, it's very, very scripted. So it's regulated, scripted. There's really no kind of going on your own here. We have it set up with these dispatches. We've set them up for success with that. Okay. The bottom 2 screens here, you see, these are the computer dispatch screens for the police side of the work. This is where all the calls get entered. That one there is all of the calls that are going on right now. So if you're looking at the road, to give you an example today, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's about 13 police officers that are working just patrol right at this very moment, and about half of them are busy tied up on calls. And we've got everything going on from car stops to a security ramp check of the airport to an assault out in the outer sectors and checking on some homeless activity on school property over at Hyannis West. So you can see we're doing a little of everything. And all of that stuff gets fielded right through here in the dispatch center. Excuse me. This one keyboard and mic kind of controls everything. Kind of controls everything. We have 4 different speakers, so we can listen to literally 4 different radio channels at any given time. And then the 911 phone, the business phones, and that pretty much sums up everything that's at this one position here. Of the 3 shifts, I would say that the day and the evening shift, probably up until about 8 or 9 p.m. are the busiest times of the day. The midnight shift, we get very, very busy for the first few hours. Then we have kind of a lull, and then when people start getting out and get back to work, around 6 a.m. we get pretty busy again. But overall, we can count on it being busy almost the entire day. And when the 4 to 12 shift comes in, they can count on being pretty busy right through about 8 or 9 p.m. And you have some lulls here and there. And again, it's just tough to judge. The fire dispatch position could be slow all night, like literally no calls on any given night, and then we could have 5 different calls going on at once, which would involve bringing in outside resources. Right. So it's tough to gauge. Our busiest night of the week, our busiest day of the week, typically a Tuesday.
Really?
Good luck explaining that. I don't know the facts behind it, but I can tell you that it feels like it, and the stats back it up. So it is. I typically work the midnight shift. When I come in on any given night, this cell block is at least half full. And these guys have had a full day of work. I can tell that they're exhausted.
My goodness. Yeah. Tuesdays. Who would have known? So going back to if there's a mass incident, how does this get broken down? So, for example, there's a 3-alarm fire, there's mutual aid and those types of things that happen. What happens in this situation here when there's multiple calls coming in for the same event? Absolutely. So, typically we have this one position that's handling the fire end of it, usually on their own. If we had a 3-alarm fire, that's gonna require 2 different people to handle that. So this entire front half of the room, we would just dedicate to the 3-alarm fire and everything that goes with that. We have a supervisor that would step in and make sure they're in here for that entire time. They basically normally float between these few rooms here, but they're gonna be in here helping. And we also actually, fortunately for us, for the first year, we have an agreement with Hyannis Fire that if we did get into one of those situations, they have somebody that's ready to respond from home to come right in here and assist us. So that's just part of our training. That wouldn't be a long-term thing, but we do have that set up for right now. So there's no real increase in staff. Everyone just has to step up their game, and then we kind of dole out the roles a little bit. Okay. Let's see what we have going on here. We have a 911 call here.
A dislocated knee. All right, so just hold on a second. I'm going to get an ambulance started to you, okay? 9 years old. Is she able to talk okay? Okay, and it's the Cape Cod Academy, Cheer Academy?
Ambulance 2, medical.
Melissa Solomon, what's your phone number?
152 of the remain. Ambulance 2, medical. This is Plano.
727.
152 of the remain.
You said she was 9 years old?
So what you heard there, I'll just kind of talk over them a little bit, was the automated dispatch for Hyannis Fire. So all of the Hyannis Fire people that are working right now, they heard that on their radios, and it gets blared over the speakers at the station, and they, as we speak, are running to the ambulance. So the next part for the dispatcher here is he's going to go over to the medical cards and just see if there's anything they need. In this case, a minor sports injury at a cheer academy. There's probably not a whole lot for him to do, but he's just going to make sure.
Okay. Okay. You're welcome.
So that's a routine medical call for Hyannis Fire in its entirety right there.
Excellent. Now you talk about, some of the other resources that you have to use. Property lookup. So Barnstable's a fairly big town with
Yes.
lots of nuances in the villages.
Absolutely.
These dispatchers may not be from Barnstable?
That has been definitely one of the toughest things to overcome in training. We're not gonna not hire someone because they're not from here,
Right.
okay? Because we have very, very qualified people applying. So we really push extra training with those people that maybe didn't grow up here. I'll put them out on ride-alongs. I'll have an officer take them literally to every little nook and cranny, stuff that's called weird names, big public venues, and make sure the big apartment complexes that are called different names, they kind of can visualize what they're sending people to.
Okay.
And they'll get out there and say, oh, wow, this place really is like 100 units. Wow, this is a big deal. So now, forever, they've got that vision in their head. We have one dispatcher that's from Rockland who really has little to no experience on the Cape. So he's coming along very, very nicely. I put him out on a few extra ride-alongs. And it's, again, using all those resources.
Right. And the property lookup piece of it, that just gives them, the different pieces of the neighborhood?
The property lookup specifically we're using to verify if an address is actually
Okay.
a real address.
Got it.
That and an owner. Okay, so we often get called to locations by alarm companies, and it can be very easily for some alarm monitoring center out in Mesa, Arizona, or maybe not even in this country,
Right.
to give a wrong address. So a lot of times not only do we get the address, but we'll get the homeowner name with it. So now we'll look and say, oh, it's not 133 Little River Road, it was 123. Something that you're just not going to know. You grab that extra piece of information from an unlikely source, and that solidifies where we need to go.
Excellent. Anything else you want folks to know about this new system and how it's working for Barnstable Police Department?
Sure. I think the biggest benefit for all, it's not really for the Barnstable Police Department or its officers, it's for the people that live and work in this town. I can say with confidence that there is no system anywhere that can get an ambulance dispatched any faster than what we're doing right here for the District of Hyannis, okay? So when you call 911, whether it's cell phone, business, home, you get one voice, one person, you get an ambulance dispatch within seconds, you get medical instructions, you get the police if needed. There's no bouncing around of these calls anymore. And I just don't know how you could get any faster than that.
Right.
A lot of times we're beat to the calls by the fire department, even though I'm already on the road.
Right.
Coming soon, I'd say probably 2 or 3 months away is texting.
Really?
So that's
Great.
a big rollout that the state's been working on for a couple of years, and they've been cautious. We want people to be able to text
Right.
in an emergency where they can't speak,
Right.
but we don't want people to start texting just because it's easier. We really want to talk to people.
Right.
But it's a great extra tool.
Right. And mass disasters as well. Texting, usually the phone lines are jammed, so texting
Yep.
does work in hurricanes and things
Absolutely.
like that as well. So that's great news.
Yes.